Welcome back to Fifth Down Territory, everybody. And just like Kendrick Lamar, we up right now. Happy to see everybody here. Hope you guys been enjoying all the beef in the world.
I'm so pissed. I had my own Kendrick pun planned, and you took it from
me. It's Tuesday evening, and y'all know what that means. Your boys are back with you at Bahookie, Montana. Blake coming in at Shane Carter finally makes his reappearance.
That's awesome.
You know, Tyler's always here. So at Stadium Ran HQ, did we change it or is it at Stadium Rant HQ?
At
the at 503. We're ignoring the typos and we're riding the vibes this evening. How's everybody doing?
The manager of a content company can't spell rant. That's not a good sign.
That's how you know he manages and doesn't.
That's honestly awesome.
It's a sign of a good manager. Like,
so unfortunate.
Man, what a week it's been, guys. I'm already ready for football season. Like, I don't know about y'all. Fantasy drafts coming in here and there. I'm ready for camps to start, camp reporting. And watching Tom Brady get roasted just made me miss Eli Manning. I don't know about anybody else, but that's all.
What a missed opportunity to not have him there.
He tweeted and he said they didn't invite me because they wouldn't let me roast him for a third time or something like that. So
that's all he needed to say.
Yeah.
Eli stays being funnier than Peyton. Hot take. I think Eli Manning is funnier than Peyton Manning, but
I think they're both really good together.
Yeah. Hotter take. Neither one of them are funny without each other.
Yeah, that's probably true.
A similar point I just made, but said a different way. Who's your favorite roaster for it? I think it was Nikki Glazier.
Nikki Glazier owned it.
As far as player or team, I'm gonna go with Drew Bledsoe. I think he did a good job. Very good with.
I like Edelman. I like Julian Edelman. I thought he was.
I liked Edelman's. I liked Gronk's. I'm not a big fan of like crude humor. I know that's probably surprising to people. I thought Gronk's was a little. Sometimes I was like,
I didn't think he was funny. I thought he was obnoxious.
He's a little. I thought it was funny because it's very Gronk. I didn't love it. What I loved, I honestly loved just watching Tom.
He's from Buffalo, so it's on brand.
Yeah. I loved the stray shot at the Colts. Like, let's go. And that came up, and I was like, these are my people.
The Bills and the Colts caught a few strays. The Bills
we expected the Bills, dude. But he mentioned the Colts, and I was like, yeah.
He went after the Chiefs too, and he's the only person who could do it right now. He's the only one who actually has the
Rasheed Rice is a close second.
Oof. Now we're making jokes on this show.
Damn, Louie. Okay, he not like us. Are you Kendrick and he's Drake? Damn.
He wrote a tight 2 for the start of the show. He's doing his little routine here.
All right.
We're off and running on Fifth Down Territory tonight.
We got a lot of real content also planned for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite story from zero to hero, who we think are the most likely candidates and least likely candidates to go from last in their division to first in their division. We're going to talk about what's interrupting the Chiefs' three-peat. I already spoiled my answer maybe. And then we got a couple other things planned, so it's going to be a good night. We're kind of in a football lull right now, but camps are going to start up here soon. We're going to go division by division. I kind of warm up to preseason, and then before you guys know it, summer's going to be over. Fall crisp is going to be in the air, and football season's going to be back. So,
that got me hyped up. I'm already ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can already feel it. Just like. I live in the South, so my idea of like a football weather is different, I think. But like it's a crisp, like low 60s, high 50s. You got the hoodie on. You're eating chili for no reason. Like,
okay, but Louie, the thing, you said hoodie in 60s. These two ain't gonna understand. Like down here, we need a hoodie within the 60s.
It drops into the 60s. It's hoodie season.
Because as soon as it hits, as soon as it hits 60-degree weather, it's gonna hit 40 and 30s like that for no reason.
Yeah.
Dude, it was 60 degrees here, and I was in like a t-shirt and shorts. I was sweating, 60 degrees up here is we're out of the winter, baby. We're rolling.
Where I'm at, it's like it's been touching the 90s the last couple of days.
Same.
Yeah. It's been hot here, so well, I'd say let's just dive right in. Right, nobody wants to just hear us ramble. listen to our laughter thoughts. So let's start with the NFC. I think probably to me when I was looking at it, I feel like let's start with the AFC actually. I feel like the NFC has more likeliness actually for zero to hero movement, but we'll start in the AFC. So the 4 teams that ended last in their divisions here were the Bengals, the Pats, the Chargers, and the Titans. So obviously some basement dwellers, some for different reasons than others. So I think everybody's first is going to be the Bengals for pretty obvious reasons, but we can go around and kind of explain this. If somebody has a different take, I'd be interested to hear it. I think the least likely part of that is that the AFC North is just a straight up dogfight every year. Like these teams are always good. I don't really know that just bringing Burrow back is going to move the needle a ton for me. Like T. Higgins hasn't been moved yet, so that's a good sign. But they did lose an offensive coordinator that I really liked for them. I don't know that I trust Zach Taylor as much as the next guy does. I'm a little skeptical. What are your guys' thoughts? What's kind of stopping the Bengals from taking the reins to challenge the Chiefs again here in the AFC?
I'll go first. I mean, the biggest issue with like guys who them facing is a little bit of defensive regression, honestly, because like Joe Burrow's coming back. They have the offensive pieces. They had Jermaine Burton, who I think is a really, really solid number 3 receiver on that team if he can get his head straight. I liked it was Callahan, right? The offensive coordinator, Brian Callahan.
Yep.
I liked him, but I really think that Zach Taylor is the one who molded the offense and picked him to come run it. So I think that's kind of like something you see with these McVay guys. They like who become head coaches. They're the one who create the system. They pick guys to run the system that they create. So Burrow coming back makes all the difference to me. I kind of disagree with you there. Like I think that's a major mover because Jake Browning played as hard as his heart could, but it's Jake Browning, and then there's Joe Burrow. It's health and defensive regression. I think Louie Amaretto calls a hell of a game, but they've definitely lost some talent on that defense that young players could replace, but I don't know if they're there yet.
I've got a hot take here from Wayne. I'm not going to try and pronounce your last name, brother, because I don't want to butcher it. He says, Burrow is the number 1 issue. Can't have sustained success when your franchise player gets hurt for the season every 2 years. So Burrow's entering, I think, his 6th year now, will be this season, maybe his 7th. I think it's his 6th, though. 5th or 6th, something like that.
Pretty sure it's his 5th.
His 5th?
Yeah, he's drafted in 2020.
You're right. So he's been hurt, season-ending injury twice now, so over 50%. Or at 50% of his seasons. What are you guys' thoughts on that? To me, unconnected injuries is usually a better sign than if it's the same thing multiple times, like a lingering leg injury. What are your thoughts on Wayne's comment?
Well, typically when a player has what you call an injury history, you're right. They would have a repeat injury of the same issue. I think it was I'm trying to remember the receiver's name. He was drafted like in the top 10 a few years ago. He had 3 years in a row where he had a torn ACL back to back to back. I can't remember his name.
Correct.
Yes, thank you. He had this sort of like all world type of potential, but he just kept on getting hurt. And obviously, if you're in a skill position, a torn ACL, especially that frequent, is going to take away your speed, and your playmaking ability, your ability to cut, all that good stuff. Lucky enough for Joe Burrow. And for whatever it is, quarterbacks ain't getting hit every single time. So that does add to him a little bit. When it came to the wrist injury, I'm not all that concerned about that because it seems like wrist injuries are a lot less likely to happen in the NFL than are leg injuries. And an ACL tear, while it's still significant, we've gone so far in medical science to the point where torn ACL ain't necessarily a career ender. Now, 3 in a row might be. But once you've done proper reconstruction and proper health and rebuilt the offensive line the way they did, I would say is a positive sign going forward for them on the to keep him upright. I do think it's worth. I think it's at least fair to say that injuries aren't an issue when it comes to Joe Burrow because he even had injury histories back in college. During Ohio State and LSU, he was knocked out a few times for concussions. I think he missed a couple of games his first season at LSU with like a neck or something like that. So he's definitely someone who's had injury issues in the past. Sorry, I'm jumbling my words. But what he's also done is done a really good job the following season of following up with it and doing better. So I think if anything, all injuries do is make him play better than next season.
Yeah. And JC makes a great point here as well. He says Burrow also has had a garbage O-line his entire career. I think they've done a lot to fix that for this year.
Yeah.
So I think, I'm not discounting Wayne's point. I understand, not a great sample size so far, but I wouldn't say it's enough yet to make a pattern. And I mean, Burrow's an all-world talent when he's on the field. Top 3 quarterback, top 5 quarterback. If you put him outside your top 5, you're just not watching tape. Yeah. So does anybody else have any thoughts on the Bengals? Drew says defense in Cincy might be suspect without Hendrickson. He also hasn't been he's the one that requested a trade, right?
Yeah, he and I think one of the cornerbacks, I believe, requested a trade. I can't remember which one it was.
But yeah,
he definitely did too.
They lost DJ Reader.
Yep.
Who I actually really like. He used to be a Texan. He was my number 1 re-sign target that offseason. That didn't happen.
I also wonder what the offense is going to look like without Joe Mixon, how the running game is going to factor into the offense. Because what made the offense so dynamic was they had playmakers all across the board. And now and this is true, with the loss of Tyler Boyd, a really underrated slot receiver who signed today with the Titans, by the way, and Joe Mixon gone to your Houston Texans, I think that does take away some of the dimensions of the offense. I wonder if they're trying to recreate an offensive game plan without having to solely focus on one guy. A lot more of the teams nowadays, they realize they can't have one lead dog. They need multiple guys to create a running game. You can't have just one guy carrying the ball 300 plus times. I don't know if Cincinnati has the guys to do that. I think right now their lead guy would be Chris Evans, if I remember right. I'm not looking at that.
Chase Brown.
Chase Brown. Okay, yeah, Chase Brown.
Zach Moss.
Yeah, I mean, again, all those guys are fine, but those guys are all habitual, piece by piece runners. None of those guys I would trust with 20 carries consistently. 10 to 15 per game spread out. That's fine. I think that's what they're trying to do more in this offense.
I called Zach Moss a plotter last offseason, and he had a pretty massive season filling in for Jonathan.
Yeah,
I have a Moneyball reference. We can't recreate Jason Giambi. We can't replace Jason Giambi, but we can recreate him with multiple players.
Yeah,
so
that's what they're doing.
And I didn't quote it exactly there. But talking about the Bengals defense. I'm not worried about the Bengals defense. They still have Lou Anarumo as their defensive coordinator. That defense is going to be just fine. What I am worried about with the Bengals is the division that they play in. Those teams are going to beat up on each other, and it's going to be unlikely that they get one of the top seeds. I think it's more likely that they finish in the 3 or 4 seed and are going to be going to Kansas City. And the injury thing with Burrow, sure, maybe it's on the radar, but I don't think it's you're trading Joe Burrow at this point. You're still pretty. I think you're still pretty confident with Joe Burrow as your quarterback. I think most franchises would be more than happy to have him. So I don't. So no, the injuries are not an issue at all. That guy's a generational talent.
So we do have a lot to get through. I'm not trying to cut everybody off. I feel like everybody had a chance to say a piece. I think collectively, 0 to hero, Bengals are our number 1 in the AFC. Who do you guys have in your 2 slot as the next most likely team to make an ascension?
Luke, you go first since you talked last time.
So we had this ranked different ways. With the way the 0 to hero is, I said the Chargers were next because I don't think they're going to win the division over Kansas City, but I do see them as a team that could be a wild card and maybe win that wild card game and get to the divisional round. And I think that would be a massive success in the first year compared to what I would expect out of the other teams. So that was why I said the Chargers.
Chargers were my 2 as well. So I'll just kind of chime in here. I think it's pretty unlikely just, to dethrone the reigning Super Bowl champions and how talented the Chiefs are. I thought they were going to fall off hard this last year without a lot of the pieces that they lost, and I was completely wrong about that. So The only thing I say that opens up to it is, right, you have the opportunity to sneak in, because I still don't think the Raiders or the Broncos are big contenders in this division. So you're talking about, you're going to sweep the same opponents in that stretch. So it's really about how they play the Chiefs. And I think with better coaching and maybe a different approach, the Chargers might have a better chance. I still think it's pretty far-fetched in that regard. Shane, who'd you have as your 2 in AFC?
So I'm actually gonna disagree with you all too. And for what it's worth, I don't think any of these 3 teams that finished last are gonna win their division. But if I had to base it on who I thought besides the Bengals had the best chance, I would want to base it on which team I thought did the most for their quarterback and their team moving forward. And to me, what I've seen so far is I like some of the moves that the Titans have done for Will Levis in this offseason. I like the addition of Calvin Ridley. I like today's sign of Tyler Boyd. I think a really underrated move you can do for your quarterback is to have a solid tight end and a great slot receiver to help him out. As you know, Louie, because your team, y'all were fortunate enough to have Dalton Schultz, and that really helped the elevation of C.J. Stroud. When it came to Will Levis, that team was marred by injuries on the offensive line. They rebuilt it a little bit. I liked J.C. Latham if he was going to play right tackle, but it sounds like he's going to play left tackle, so we'll see. Again, I don't consider myself an offensive line guru, but y'all do know that I do like to scout offensive linemen. It's an underrated position to scout, by the way. I love their tight end, Chigo Okonkwo. I think he's going to his 3rd year out of Maryland. He's a really underrated player, really good athlete with the ball after the catch. I also don't mind that they have Hopkins no longer doesn't have to be the number 1 guy. With Boyd and with Ridley there, that kind of takes the pressure off him on the offense side. I love the addition of Callahan, like Bahookie brought up from Cincinnati. I do wonder what the offense is going to look like going from a pure Derrick Henry running game to splitting ties between Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears in the backfield, because now they're going more that money ball type backfield, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
And truth be told, in terms of the AFC, I would say they don't have the best defense, but they definitely have one of the least talked about, underrated defenses in the AFC, especially that front 7. I really do like their edge rushers and their defensive line and their linebackers core. Even with the loss of Al-Shazi, I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry.
He's Al-Shair.
Yes, thank you. I'm embarrassed because I've said his name so many times in the last couple months that I forgot how to pronounce it. But again, I don't think the Titans necessarily should win the South, but I give them a better shot than, no offense, the Patriots or the Chargers. I think the Chargers haven't done enough. I don't really trust that defense either. That defense is way too old, way too hurt. I love the offense. I love the offensive line, especially. I think the Chargers by the end of the season could have a top 1 offensive line. But I think the defense a lot of times has hurt teams with really good ascending offenses. So the Titans, to me, have done the most to recoup and done the most to help out their quarterback this offseason.
I actually agree with you, Shane. I put the Titans as my number 2. I think they have the best chance of. So when I did mine, it was winning the division. I know how off of a chance it is, but if we're ranking the 4 teams, which one has the best possibility? The Titans would be the second. They also picked up Lloyd Cushenberry at center. They got Jason.
Underrated move.
Yeah, I really like that move. Another thing that you do to help out a young quarterback is you get a really, really smart, good center. So you add him, Latham, you have Skoronski from last year. Now you're starting to put together this young offensive line. You have aging, but still pretty damn good wide receivers in D-Hop, Calvin Ridley, Tyler Boyd. Treylon Burks is probably cooked. Even Nick Westbrook-Akini is a good player who they use sparingly. I know, but for his role, he's a good player as a wide receiver 4. He's not more than that. Can't be a 1. But with this talent of pass catchers with Chig, he could be a really solid 5th option. You brought in Tony Pollard. Didn't like that move at first, but after seeing what they did in their plan with their offseason, because you go and get L'Jarius Sneed on the defensive side of the ball, and that defense typically is run very good. I know that was a Mike Vrabel thing. We'll see if it carries over. But they have Jeffrey Simmons. They have L'Jarius Sneed. They drafted Devondre Sweat to pair with Jeffrey Simmons. Good luck running through that. He's your D2 in a 4-3. You know what I mean? So
they also added Sebastian Joseph Day, underrated move with Sebastian Joseph Day. I like that move a lot too. For what it's worth, though, Louie, I think Houston's going to win that division, but the Titans, to us, I think would have the best chance of going from worst to first.
Yeah, that was where I was going with it.
The Titans are actually my 3. My logic in placing them under the Chargers in this instance, I think the Titans are a better team than the Chargers. I just think the AFC South is going to be such a dogfight this year. Like every offense loaded up. Both the Jaguars and the Colts went wide receiver early. The Titans took a lot of wide receivers. The Texans traded for Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. Wayne, North is tough, but don't sleep on the South. Richardson is back with weapons and a beefed up defense.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Generous, I would say, statement. They didn't really do that much to change it. And, Lawrence had 9 wins last year in a down year.
Yeah. Plus, I think going from Calvin Ridley to Gabe Davis, in my opinion, is a bit of a downward slope. I think Gabe Davis is a situational big play receiver. I think Ridley is more consistent. But that's
they got Brian Thomas Jr. So you're going for
they took Brian Thomas Jr. in the first. They took some defensive pieces later in the draft. The Colts took a lot too in the first. Not my favorite move. I know a lot of people who liked it. I didn't hate it. And then they got Adonai Mitchell in the second, which I thought was an absolute steal. And then obviously Richardson's coming back. So, and I think the Texans, right? Everybody's telling me CJ Stroud's going to regress with absolutely no data to prove that point. All the continuity I think is there for him to succeed. And I don't think anybody's been able to show me another quarterback as good that's regressed. But, sophomore slumps are a real thing. I think if another team wins this division, I don't think it's the Titans. I think it's the Colts. And that's why I had them at 3. I just think it's a really, really tough division to play in. And there's a lot of Levis didn't have a great stretch to finish the year. You bring in a new offensive system that he has to learn this year, new pieces that he has to gel with. There's little continuity there. That's why they're in my 3 spot.
I get you. My third team is actually the Patriots. And this is simply because when I looked at this, it was again to win the division. The Chargers aren't beating the Chiefs in the division. There's a better chance that the Bills the Pats eke one out than it is against the Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets than the Chargers having a better season than the Chiefs. That was kind of how I looked at it. And it's very small chance. Don't get this twisted. I think the Pats are going to win the East. I really don't. But if you're telling me do you trust the Pats to do it in this division, or do you trust the Chargers to do it against the Chiefs? I am going to go with the Pats. I do like a lot of the moves that they've made. They actually seem like they have a plan this offseason. Kind of rebuilt that wide receiving core. Hopefully it worked out. They've done a lot of good things. They brought back most of their defense, and they had a really good defense last year for the most part, and that was missing their 2 best players. So you get Matt Judon, you get Christian Gonzalez back. Let's see what we can do with a player's coach and see what we can get out of him. That's kind of why I do think that Aaron Rodgers, the Jets are one bad step on turf away from being right back where they were last year. And the Dolphins, I don't think they had a great offseason. They didn't have a bad one. I don't think they had a great one. And like Bahookie always says, the Dolphins have this thing where they'll win 8 games, then they'll lose 7 games, and still end up being a 500 team. So
it always ends the same way.
Yeah, and then I think the Bills have at least downgraded for this year as they try and set up their next iteration of this Josh Allen era. So go for it, Bahookie.
So I'm going to respectfully disagree with everything you just said. I think
why
that
we
there's
do this.
no, and it's okay. We need to have different opinions to have the conversation. I'm going to say that there's a better chance of the Bills, Jets, and Dolphins all making the playoffs than the Patriots making the playoffs. And I had the Patriots last on my list. And I like the moves that we were talking before this. The Patriots made some good moves, and the Patriots finally have direction, which is something that I don't think they've had in the last 3 to 5 years, honestly. And sometimes it's good to kind of take a step back by design, and that was what the Bills did the year that they took Josh Allen. They were a playoff team, then they went to be a 6-win team, and then they were back in the playoffs. And I think that's kind of what the Bills are doing this year. They're retooling a little bit and kind of taking a step back by design. So the window is, I think, open for the Jets or the Dolphins to maybe do it. I still don't think it's going to happen because I don't really trust those teams, but maybe there's a year they could do it. Digressing. So that was my fourth team. The third team I have is the Titans. I agree with all the points that Shane made. Unfortunately, I agree more with the points that Louie made about the AFC South really being a division that's on the come up. And this was the division that was kind of looked at as like the stepchild of the AFC for the last few years, and it's not that way anymore. The Texans really are one of the premier threats in the AFC. And I kind of like what all of the teams have done in different ways. And I think there is a good chance that Will Levis takes a step forward, but I have a hard time believing that they're going to be like that they could be a playoff team. So, and I feel like I could see like the Chargers potentially as a playoff team. Maybe I'm wrong. Been wrong before.
Yeah, for what it's worth about the Titans, before I give you my 3 and 4, for what it's worth about the Titans, I like the moves they made for him, bringing in Callahan, adding in Boyd, just because if he is the guy, they're setting him up to where they can't have an excuse that you didn't have anything. They rebuilt his offensive line. At the very least, on his blind side, his left side looks miles better than his right. His right side serviceable. If you look at like the projected starting offensive line with Latham and Skoronski at left tackle, left guard, that's better than what they've had since what's his face retired. Yeah, thank you. But again, I think we're all pretty much in agreement that right now the Texans are going to run the South, but it's going to be one of those things where like the worst team is going to have 7 wins, the best team is going to have 10 wins because they're going to just maul each other. But it won't necessarily mean that one team's bad.
I think.
Go ahead.
I just want to say I love your point about like Levis has no excuse.
Nope.
And I think that's a huge part of why I've liked the Titans offseason so much, because you bring these guys in and it's like he's the guy and we build around him, or he's not the guy and we have to figure out how to get the guy.
Yes.
I like that approach. You're not going to let it sit there and no excuses to be made, right? 3 good receivers, a good tight end. You're doing what you can on the offensive line. I think Chig's an underrated blocker as well. I think it's part of his tape that, at least in Vrabel's era.
He's a great player.
He's a good player. I like Chig a lot. Anyway, didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But what made it tough for me is when it came down to the Patriots and the Chargers. It was tough for me because I don't really have faith in either one of them right now, at least not this year. But I based my third on which team I like from now to where I think moving forward. And I based it on a couple of things: quarterback, coach, and how the organization is structured. And to me, that's why I chose the Patriots as my third best option. Because even though I would say the Chargers have the better quarterback, because we don't know what Drake May is going to be like, you could argue Jim Harbaugh's a better coach, even though I love Gerard Mayo like to death. I love the intensity. I love it seems like they play for him. Jim Harbaugh, though, does have an NFL pedigree of like showing success. But I do not, and I cannot trust the organizational structure of the Chargers based on what I've seen. They've had talented teams like this in the past, and they've done nothing with them. The Patriots have done more with less, for those kind of reasons, I can trust them more for that. Also, on top of this, when it comes to the AFC East, and Bahookie, you can interrupt me if you want to, just to backtrack any points I might have. This is based on what I've seen on the outside. I like the Dolphins from an offensive standpoint. I can't trust them defensively consistently. I know I can secure their offense. The defense looks like it can be played with.
They don't have their playmakers are on the offensive side of the ball. They don't have game breakers on the defensive side of the ball. They don't have anyone to match up with Josh Allen. Right.
It's a bend don't break time defense, which, once upon a time would work, but it doesn't work like that anymore. When it comes to the Bills have the best quarterback in that division by far. Maybe only the second best in the league, depending, because no one's better than Pat Mahomes right now. Let's just get over that. You can argue who number 2 is, but Josh Allen at the very least has the argument of being second best. And for that reason, you can't really take them out of that consideration any year. And when it comes to the Jets, I don't trust the Jets. I do not trust the Jets. I don't trust the health of their offensive line. Their starting tackles are over 30 and have had injury issues. Aaron Rodgers, I think, has been on the downward slope of his career the last 2 years, even before the injury. I don't like that they made all these moves and add all this guaranteed money to weapons that we're not sure are going to be there for whoever the next quarterback is going to be. I don't trust the Jets.
I don't like their draft either. Like the later rounds.
I agree with that.
Got 2 running backs, a quarterback. Like
I didn't mind Jordan Travis. I like Jordan Travis, but it's still coming off a devastating injury is never like an easy thing to overcome from.
It's just like you have Aaron Rodgers. I'd be trying to use all these picks to like beef up the O line and get wide receivers and like maybe a tight end. Throw a tight end in there instead of the second running back that you took when you already have three. But yeah,
which is why I think that even though right now you could say the Jets and Dolphins both have more talent than the Patriots, I think the Patriots have an easier time with those two, and I think the Chargers, for some reason, they can't get over themselves, taking on a really much improved Raiders team. Look what the Raiders have done, even despite they're not the quarterback. I think right now they're better than the Broncos. The Broncos, I think, are on the downward slope, but I wouldn't put them past the Raiders. I would give, just in terms of today, I think I like more of what the Patriots are doing now moving forward than what I can trust, keyword, trust, the Chargers can do moving forward.
Could I rebuttal to that? You had some good points. About the Jets. The Jets have had a super unlucky run of injuries the last few years. It's been absolutely crazy. Like, and the Aaron Rodgers one is like the icing on the cake. But like, in 1 year it's C.J. Mosley, 1 year it's Carl Lawson. Like they lose. They Breece Hall. They lose like their best players like every single year. And I feel like they're due to have 1 year where that doesn't happen, but they also play at MetLife, so maybe that has something to do with it. I think the Dolphins are gonna take a step back this year. Maybe I'm wrong, but the Dolphins are just not a team that I believe in. But and the Patriots, like again, you do make some good arguments. They do have some direction. I just don't know if it's this year. It's
not. It's more about what I trust them to do.
Mm-hmm. If we have this same conversation in 2-3 years, I think that like the Patriots have a really good chance to be like that team, second team. Especially if, I like Drake May. I think they really might have got a steal with that pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I still would take the Bills. I think the Bills are more set up for long-term success. And to your point, in terms of like the more immediate success, I would give more to the Patriots because I can trust them more as an organization. I can't trust the Chargers. Nothing in Chargers history has told me I can trust them.
It's fair.
All right, we want to go to the NFC?
Yeah, I just want to say Patriots are my fourth, and that's just because of how young that team is. I liked what they did this offseason. I think they're headed in a good direction. I just think too much youth is going to be hinged on, so that's why they're my fourth.
There was the Chiefs thing for me. Like, and I thought we were talking about division, like who's winning the division. Like,
it is winning the division. That is
last year we actually beat Buffalo with Mac Jones.
It did.
So, like,
my point in putting the Chargers so high is that, and I'm not wishing this on anybody. I need to be super clear about that. But say the Chiefs have a really bad injury year, and like Patrick Mahomes has an injury that keeps him out for some games, whatever. Then it's wide open for the Chargers.
The team goes down, and everything's out.
Multiple good teams. It's like you have to make a legit run, right? There's no flukes happening in the AFC South this year. That's a dogfight. I think the AFC East is the same way. But we do need to move to the NFC. So doing the same thing on this side. I'm going to make a quick plug real quick, though. We have a sister show called Fantasy Rant. And if you want to talk about zero to hero on an individual player scale and you need help going from the number one overall pick to a championship, those are your guys. So check out that show, Fantasy Rant. What nights are they on, Tyler?
They're on Wednesday nights. I believe it's 7 o'clock.
Wednesdays at 7 Eastern. So, go in there, drop some questions. You got your drafts coming up, and you don't want to miss them. Dan and the guys do a great job over there. So moving to the NFC, your zeros in this conference are the Bears, Commanders, Panthers, and Cardinals. So I want to go ahead and start. Let's let Tyler start this one. Who's your number one overall best odds zero to hero in this division, in this conference?
It's the Cardinals for me. The Rams, I like what they did. I think they did a good job trying to replace Aaron Donald, but Aaron Donald left. You know what I mean? Matt Stafford's 1 year older. Like, you're kind of getting to that thing where like you might hit some regression with him. I don't know. I don't trust the Seahawks to win more than 8 games. On it, like they're kind of like the Dolphins for me, like the modern, like the NFC Dolphins. Like maybe not as predictable, but like they're not winning more than 10 games in this like per season at this moment to me. Then you look at the other team blanking. Jesus.
San Fran.
Yep, San Fran. Obviously great team, but like they do this. They've been like we were talking about. Their injury history has been relatively clean for the past couple of seasons. That could spark up again. Then we'll talk about the Cardinals because you're getting Kyler Murray back. You're actually giving him Marvin Harrison Jr., generational prospect. You got offensive line last year. You kind of added to it this year with Jonah Williams. So you're putting Paris Johnson Jr., Jonah Williams as your tackles there. You added Trey Benson. You had a bunch of players on defense. And they were one of these scrappy teams, even with Josh Dobbs last year, kind of making like they beat your Cowboys inexplicably. They're one of those teams that just hung around. Once Kyler got back, you kind of saw the offense turn into something. So, yeah, like I just you get that. You have the quarterback, you pair him with the wide receiver. I like the coach Jonathan Gannon. You kind of add some auxiliary pieces in there. It was a decent team to begin with, and they just had a massive draft class. So, yeah, I think they had the best offseason of that division, and it could really help them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good answer. I just changed my answer, actually, and I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the Panthers. I know this is a really unpopular pick, going from the number 1 overall pick to a division winner, but I don't really like what any of these teams in their division did a ton in the draft. Like, I don't feel like any of them got noticeably better. The Saints showed up the offensive line. The Bucks took a center, I believe.
I thought
Graham Barton.
That was a great pick.
That was a great pick. That was the only like really great pick.
They're going
Jalen McMillan.
I just didn't love a lot of the stuff that happened down the line. I think the Panthers had a lot of intentionality. I liked the Canales hire for what it was. And he already knows the Bucs offensive scheme, right? You know, he knows Baker. He worked with all that stuff. So I think that gives them an edge. I just think they had a lot of intentionality on offense. I think their defense will regress a little bit without Burns, without Louie, some of those guys. But I think their offense takes a pretty big stride forward this year with Bryce Young. And the Falcons kind of fumbling their opportunity to establish themselves as true division holders with the Penix pick. I'm gonna go the Panthers as my 1 here.
All right, Bahookie, who do you have?
So for 1, yeah, I got the Cardinals here again. This is kind of a similar scenario like with what I just said about the Chargers. I don't really see them dethroning San Francisco for the division. Could it happen? Yes, San Francisco does randomly sometimes like fall off after being really good and have injury problems. But I feel like they've been really run consistently under John Lynch and Shanahan. But yeah, they showed flashes last year, like we were talking about. That's like what you want to see in good young teams when they when it doesn't always have to be like everything that year, but you see at least things that give you hope and flashes in the pan. And we saw that. And yeah, you said they add Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey Benson and Kyler Murray's coming back fully healthy. Like, yeah, that's a team that contend. I agree. The Seahawks weren't quite as good as we were expecting them to be last year. And who's the last team that I'm forgetting?
The 49ers. No, the Rams. Sorry.
The Rams. The Rams were a little bit better, but last year than I think some people expected. But yeah, I would say the Cardinals could definitely be in the playoffs and win a playoff game. And I consider that 0 to hero if you're picking 4 and then winning a playoff game.
Yeah. No, Shane, what do you think?
Okay, so whenever I do rankings of any kind, I always have to have like a set of rules. Like I think I told y'all, whenever I rank quarterbacks, I never put in someone coming off a rookie season because I've seen too many 1-year wonders. RG3, you know. If you can do it after your second year, what? Well, yeah. Well, I didn't put him in my top 10 regardless. But if you can do it a second year in a row, then yeah, you could prove it. Which is why not yet, Louie. I won't put CJ in as a top 10 yet, but if he does it again, he's a lock. Just for perspective. When it comes to these sort of things, a rule that I would have for like zero to hero, if we want to call it that, is I don't trust teams with rookie quarterbacks. You can only trust based on what you know. We don't know what a rookie quarterback is going to look like. So immediately that takes away Chicago from me, and that takes away Washington from me. Then I look at Arizona, and then I look at Carolina, and I look at which team would have an easier time going from worst to first. And no offense to y'all, the obvious answer out of that is Carolina. The obvious answer to that is Carolina, because if I'm Arizona, y'all talk about Arizona being scrappy. That's true, but scrappy is only going to get you so far going up against the Rams and Niners, which are two of the best run organizations over the last near decade in the NFL. Again, I don't trust the Seahawks either, especially after losing Pete Carroll. I don't know what that team's going to look like. I don't know what that team's going to look like with Geno Smith, who I thought regressed a little bit coming off a really solid year the year before. I think Arizona could fight for a wild card spot. I like the moves they made on the offensive line. I love Marvin Harrison Jr., but not enough to say they're going to take out the Rams or the Niners. When it comes to the Panthers, though, the Panthers did the same thing the Titans did for their quarterback. They supplied him with weapons. They rebuilt the offensive line, and they gave him an offensive system that they think can cater to his abilities, similar to what he ran in Alabama. Look what they did. They went out and got Deontay Johnson, a really, really solid upscale slot receiver that most teams with young quarterbacks would love to have. They went and they drafted Jonathan Brooks, a running back who can run in and out of the zone. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield. At the very least, is sort of like Christian McCaffrey light. He can do the same stuff. Not obviously, I don't think the same necessarily at the same scale, but he's a similar style player. So at the very least, they are setting Bryce Young up to succeed in that way. And I agree with Louis' point. They lost a lot of key defensive players, but they also brought a lot of key defensive players back. And also, in a division, and I think that the Falcons, I think a lot of people's favorite to win that division. I think it says a lot when the owner signs a quarterback, but the coach drafts another. That is a bad side for the organization when they can't get along with that kind of thing, especially when you use that first-round draft pick on a player that can help you win now. Dallas Turner, Latu, depending on how you feel about that. Hell, they could have used it on a receiver if they wanted to pair with Drake London, but they didn't. And so what? Yeah. And then when it comes to the Saints did show up the offensive line, but they're stuck with Derek Carr, and Derek Carr has clearly regressed since he left Vegas. When it comes to the Bucks, I love Baker Mayfield. I've been following his revenge tour. I don't love the look of that offensive line aside from Graham Barton and the drafting. I mean, Tristan, the drafting of Graham Barton and obviously bringing back Tristan Wirfs. That defense is getting old and battered aside from their secondary, which is kind of spotty. So at the very least, is this: the Panthers are setting themselves up the same way the Titans set up Will Levis in a situation to where if they can win, they will win with this type team. And at the very least, if I have to go off a team, it's going to be based on like who I think is going to have the easier opportunity, and that is going to be for me, without question, the Panthers.
Yeah, no, they're in the worst division in football, so like, they have the best chance.
And someone has to make the playoffs in the worst division in football.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all.
What are your thoughts, Miller? Who's your two?
My two, I believe it is the Bears. I understand what you're saying about the rookie quarterback, but this kind of just boils down to I don't trust or believe in Bryce Young. Like that's just kind of what it boils down to for me. I think that Caleb Williams is walking into the most stacked offensive setup the number one overall pick quarterback has ever really walked into. He has an above average offensive line. It's not the best offensive line, but it's certainly serviceable. He has probably the three best weapons you could have in DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze now. Cole Kmet, really, really good tight end. Like, I would say he's very underrated. You bring in DeAndre Swift. You have Roshan Johnson, who is competing with Bijan Robinson and beating out Jonathan Brooks on that Texas team for touches. Who really, really good running back. I think that they didn't give him enough time before trading for Swift. I would have done something different, but now they have both of them, so neither one of them should wear down. And then you look at that defense, man, like Montez Sweat. You look at that secondary with Jalen Johnson, Jaquan Brisker. They have Kyler Gordon and another really good cornerback. I'm blanking on the name at the moment. But that secondary setup, Montez Sweat makes that defense dangerous. It activates the way they play. They have three really good linebackers as well. It really boils down to me, like, Shane Waldron is an okay offensive coordinator. He did help Geno kind of recreate himself a couple of years ago, so like he has that going for him. I don't think he was the best choice, but I don't think he'll hurt the development of Williams, and I think that team is due for a little bit of luck regression as well. So give me the Bears.
Yeah, the Bears are my 2 as well. I like what they've done this offseason. I kind of go back and forth on Ryan Poles because I feel like he has some really good drafts, and then I feel like he's got his moments where, he trades the 32nd overall pick for Chase Claypool. But I do feel like
worst move he's made for sure.
Yes, it is a glaring error, but I do think you hit pretty much all the main points. Like, they've built a competent team. This is probably one of the best situations a first round pick has ever walked into. A first overall pick, excuse me. And I think Caleb Williams is getting too much hate. Personality aside, I've worked with a lot of people I can't stand who are good at what they do, and it's annoying as could be. So do I like his personality? I don't know. I haven't really seen that much of it. I'm leaning no, but I don't like Patrick Mahomes that much anymore either, and that guy balls. So the Bears are my second. The only thing that kept them from being first is not team build, it's division. I really like how the Lions are built. I like that they doubled down on cornerback, which is a little paradoxical if you watched some of my live stream recap, because I don't usually like when teams double dip, but here I think it was a clear need.
Yeah,
I think it was the clear right choice, and I feel like the value was there. So I think the Lions are still pretty much a lock to win this division. I like the Vikings. The Packers are still good too, right? So for me, it goes Lions, Packers, probably Bears, and then Vikings. But they're my 2. So Blake,
you want to go next?
Yeah, I also have the Bears here. I'll try and say this differently, because you guys did cover most of the points. Yeah, he's going into the probably the best situation a number 1 quarterback has gone into. I'm a Notre Dame fan. I'm a known Caleb Williams hater. With that being said, he's got the opportunity to come in here and maybe be the best quarterback in this division, and come out and have all these amazing weapons, like literally every side. This team has a lot of potential, and I just like the situation of the entire team going forward, and they I feel like have the potential to really surprise some people. Maybe it's not as big of a surprise at this point with the way everyone's talking about it.
Or Shane, go for it.
Make that 4 for 4. The Bears, like by far, I think have done. Like, it started honestly this half the way through last season with the addition of Montez Sweat. By the way, this doesn't break my rule of not taking rookie quarterbacks. I didn't take a rookie quarterback to as my favorite, but I can't ignore that right now. Caleb Williams and what the Bears have done over the last really year and a half has really improved this team. Their offensive line, going back to when they drafted Darnell Wright and played him at right tackle, really helped this offensive line to pair him with Braxton Jones to set up any quarterbacks on outside edges. I don't love that they've yet to address the center position, because that's something I feel like if you listen to Bears people, it was a position that they thought they should have really paid more attention to in the draft. But y'all talked about Moore, Odunze, and Allen. Yes, Keenan Allen. Thank you. Has rapidly become one of the more talked about receiver trios in the game. I don't love their front 7. I like pieces of the front 7. I don't think they did enough to really address the defensive tackle position, and they really were bad against covering the run last year. I thought that should have been addressed more of, but at the very least offensively, and even in the secondary, I like the moves they made. And when it comes to and it came back to the same thing with the Panthers, the concept of which one's gonna have the easier time. Granted, the Packers and Lions ain't gonna be easy, but those are teams that they are very familiar with and they can beat, at the very least, compared to the other 2 teams, which we'll talk about, and how they can compete in their own division. I think the Bears right now are set up to, at the very least, be a threat this year. I don't know if they're going to be a contender or even a playoff team, but they will be one of those scrappy, threatening teams that we see on the rise in the coming years.
Ward, do you want to start off with number 3 for you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll go back around.
You say you or Louie? Sorry.
No, you start.
Good.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, my third team, I went with the Cardinals. And it's not because I hate the Commanders. Nothing to do with that. It's just because, like, I think the Cardinals, at the very least, yeah, they were marred by injury. Y'all talked about they're a very scrappy team. I love the addition to Jonah Williams as well with Paris Johnson at the tackle position. You brought in Marvin Harris Jr. to match up with Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson, by the way, very untalked about. I would say upside wide receiver 3, low mid tier wide receiver 2. You saw the addition of Trey McBride and how he really took over in his second year. He's going to be one of those more talked about tight ends coming into the season. And I really just love the way that Jonathan Gannon has like organized this team, especially on the defense side of the ball, guys playing above their means, if you want to call it that. And in a division, if you look at the West, Seahawks are old. The Seahawks right now, the best thing they have going for them is their 3 receivers. I don't love their offensive line. I like some of the players on defense. Like I really like their cornerbacks, but I don't love their front 7 as a whole. And Geno Smith, I feel like is 1 year away from being replaced. I think he was a good filler quarterback. I don't think he's going to be the long-term answer. If I look at the Niners have been very, very fortunate to have someone like Kyle Shanahan to run an offense that could be fortunate for any quarterback that plays. I'm not one of those guys that think that Brock Purdy is just a product of the system, but I do think that Brock Purdy is a guy who has been very fortunate to have a system that he plays for. I also don't love that we don't really know what their receiving core is going to look like, and I don't want to discredit like what they've built on the outside with Debo, with Kittle, with Ayuk, yeah, I didn't like that pick, to be honest. I had a third round grade on him, but again, that's neither here nor there. And the Rams, to me, are one of the most consistent franchises in the last decade. And if this is Stafford's last year, I think some people speculate this could be Matt Stafford's last year. I wouldn't be scared. I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams somehow turned around next year and they have a different start and they're still just as effective as they were. But the Cardinals are keeping pace. I like the moves they've made, and I like a lot more of the moves they made than that team out of Washington.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. My third team was the Panthers. I liked Washington's draft, but like they're going through a different thing than just rebuilding a football team. Like they have a new owner. Like they have a new everything. Everything's new from the top to bottom. They're like reworking their brand. Even their freaking logo and name has changed 2 times in the past 5 years. Like they're redoing this whole thing here. The Panthers might be in like Dave Temper's days as their owner might be like being counted down. I don't know. I don't think he'll get forced out, but like that dude's a clown. I don't know how you're such a clown and you make so much money, but whatever. Besides the point. I arguably like Jaden Daniels better than
I gotta go. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good, buddy. I like Jaden Daniels over Bryce Young. But I do like the moves that they made this offseason. Bringing in Deontay Johnson, replacing a DJ Chark with a Xavier Legette, getting a Jonathan Brooks to kind of fix that Miles Sanders debacle. You still have what's the other running back's name there? Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard. Yeah, so you get a Tavion Sanders. You desperately needed a tight end that could do something after the catch. He's very athletic. And then there you go. You have Deontay Johnson. You have Adam Thielen. You have Legette. You have Terrence Marshall, who kind of sucks, but like is still there. Jonathan Brooks is now there. You're kind of building this thing out for Bryce Young, who again, not my favorite. If I liked Young more, I would have put them higher on this list.
Yeah. I had the Cardinals as my 3. I think we've pretty much covered the ground. Again, for me, the biggest thing to go from 0 to hero is division. The Rams and the Niners are just such juggernauts. The Niners especially, I think they're going to be right back in the NFC Championship game this next year. CMC is pretty much an offense of his own. They kept Debo. They kept Ayuk. They added Ricky Pearsall, which, I thought was a reach, but also is better, I think, than Jawan Jennings. I think that's going to be an upgrade at their 3. You keep Kittle. You've got your, I think the offensive line's getting a little better with continuity. So I just don't see a path forward. Again, this is one of those things where it's like if it was just the Niners, maybe. But the Rams with Puka, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, all these pieces, And Sean McVay in that division is just it's a tough ask for any team. And I actually liked the Seahawks offseason. I like that they're catering to their coaches' expertise. I don't love Geno, but you picked up Sam Howell, who
Sam Howell,
pretty underrated. They hired the Ravens defensive coordinator, and then you've got two really good defensive tackles to play to his strengths, which is where he's good at stunting linemen. I think this is, again, going to be a bloodbath of a division. So.
Bahookie, what do you think? Third, and then start with your fourth, and we'll go back around the other way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm more or less doing them at the same time. I put the Commanders ahead of the Panthers here. You guys made up a lot of good points about the strength of the divisions, and and the Commanders are looking up at the Eagles and Cowboys, and the Panthers are looking up at not the Saints, and the Falcons. Maybe I like the Bucs. I live in Tampa. They're my NFC team. I was a little higher on what the Bucs did this offseason. But really what it comes down to is me liking Jaden Daniels a whole heck of a lot more than liking Bryce Young. There's rightfully so a lot of talk about the pieces that the Panthers have added. I feel like the Commanders have had pieces, like they have Terry McLaurin and they have Jahan Dotson, and they just added Ben Sinnott, right?
Yeah.
Yes, they did add Ben Sinnott.
Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, so it's not like the Commanders don't have weapons either, and I think Jaden Daniels is going to be one heck of a pick, and I was trying to get him in a couple of my dynasty drafts, but he was gone quick. I think everyone is kind of starting to catch on. So that's really what it came down to me. I basically kind of graded these based on how I like the situation and like how what I think the potential for these teams are. And you can debate the strength of schedule and the path to get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there when we do our division breakdowns.
Yeah.
I have the Commanders in my 4 slot. I think it's just division again for me. Like, the thing about the Commanders rebuild is they didn't really blow it up. Okay, so it's been a bad team. You're trying to rebuild while maintaining some of your good pieces. They shipped off Chase Young. I don't know that I would consider that a big piece. Montez Sweat was really the big piece, and they didn't get as much for him as I would have liked. And then I did love their draft.
They basically got Jerzon Newton for Montez Sweat.
Yeah, they got Jerzon Newton. I like Jerzon Newton. Okay, if that injury clears up, I think they got a steal where they're at. I like Jaden Daniels. I don't necessarily love the offensive line still. It's spotty. I think he's going to have to run a lot, and I think they're going to have to ask a lot of him in year one. And when you're in a division with a team that went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and then, even though them boys didn't actually go all in, I just think they're still a good team. And I don't love their corner situation either. They took a big swing on corner last year, overthought it, missed out on Gonzalez, and I think they are regretting it. And I think his physical makeup, Emmanuel Forbes is who they took, and I think his physical matchup ability against some of these big-bodied wide receivers in the NFC just isn't going to work. He's not going to stop a DK. He's not going to stop an A.J. Brown. And I don't love the Giants right now, but I don't think he's going to stop Malik Neighbors either, if I'm being honest. So the Commanders are my 4. There's too many holes here for me.
This was a good year one of a rebuild. Yeah. Like I feel a similar way about the Commanders, but that's why I had them last. You're in too tough a division with the Cowboys and the Eagles. Like, those teams, regardless of what they do in the playoffs, are one of them is habitually very good in the regular season, and the other one isn't that far behind. And they're both playing Washington really well as of late. So, I like a lot of things that Washington did. Mike Sandersill, Jerzon Newton, adding Ben Sinnott, like Luke McCaffrey, Jaden Daniels. These are all great. If I were them, when those 2 picks in 36 and 40, both would have been offensive linemen. Both would have been offensive linemen for me.
Yeah, if you want to think about the NFC East this way, it's the Cowboys and the Eagles are Drake and Kendrick Lamar, and the Commanders are J. Cole. Like, keep your head down, try and stay out of this business for a couple more years. You don't really want to.
Not talent wise, just as far as mental personality.
Yeah, you just don't want the smoke right now, and that's fine. But you're not built for it right now.
Talent wise, J. Cole's better than both of them. So
I'll let you have that opinion. So we were going to talk about. We can speak a couple quick words on the Chiefs and the right roadblocks to a three-peat. I'm going to go and start this off, if that's okay. I think my biggest one is culture. This is going to sound super stupid, I think, to some people. I think the Chiefs are not keeping the main thing. I like Andy Reid. You have an all-world, possibly all-time talent in Patrick Mahomes. But Rashee Rice isn't doing well this offseason. I think Travis Kelce isn't really focused, locked in like he used to be. He got an extension. You lose L'Jarius Sneed. Xavier Worthy felt like a luxury pick that they could make, but no guarantee that he pans out as an elite prospect. You brought in Marquise Brown, who's okay. I don't know that I think of him as a 1. So I think the biggest obstacle to the Chiefs three-peating is the Chiefs. Right? Nobody's in your way but you. It's time to lock in. You know, the Patriots didn't do this. They didn't run around and, other than Aaron Hernandez, I can't really think of any big stories like that, like until the later years. You want to set up a dynasty? You want to go for the three-peat? It's time to lock in. You can't be partying at graduations. You can't be racing in the streets. You can't be doing any of that stuff. You gotta get connected, Tony. I think they have a lot of strong personalities, and I think that's really my big.
It could be an issue. What was I gonna say? So I had 2, one for the NFC, one for the AFC. The AFC, Louie, this will make you happy because it's actually the Texans. No team that has spent on no team's really done what the Texans have done recently. They had the number 2 pick and they traded up for the number 3 pick and got arguably my top 2 players on the board last year. And the year before that, they got Derek Stingley Jr. Those are 3 of the top 5 players on my board each draft, and each one is at a position in need. You already have 2 left tackles or 2 tackles that are very good if healthy. You have Green, left guard.
Kenyon Green, yeah.
Kenyon Green. Really good offensive line. Then you go and add a Daniil Hunter and a Stephon Diggs and a Joe Mixon. Like, you're adding these massive, massive players to, really big, important positions. But it's not like it's not like you didn't have your core. You still have your core. These are just, toppings on your ice cream. You're not scooping out the ice cream with those 3 players. Those 3 players are like your M&Ms and your Jimmies that you're throwing on an awesome Sunday. And, this team has it all. And as long as CJ Stroud can come back and be that dude again, they're a threat. They're a threat to everybody in the NFL. Then I go to the Lions over in the NFC. They beat the Chiefs week 1. That's a big spot for everybody. First game of the year, nationally televised. I know it's not the Super Bowl, but it's week 1. You're juiced up. Everybody's juiced up for that game. It's not some random regular season game. First game on the season to start everything off. You add a Terry and Arnold, and you add Ennis Rankstraw to that defense, and to with the needs that you really had on that team. Yeah, give me the Lions. Give me Jared Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs gonna come out and have 2,500 all-purpose yards. It's gonna be crazy. They're
touching back on your Texans in the AFC. As you guys know, Roger Goodell is a regular watcher of the show, of course. Why wouldn't he be? Give the people what they want. Schedule release this week. Chiefs Texans season opener. Give the people what they want.
That would be hot.
Bahookie, who do you think?
Kind of a combination of the things you said. I typed it out on the document. Paraphrasing. Yeah, the number one obstacle is themselves, as Louie said. It's hard to stay hungry when you've been fed. And a hungry dog runs faster. Basically, both mean the same. Both mean the same thing. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's been the most important thing. These guys are like becoming more celebrities than football players. That's that's also just a byproduct of winning, and they're still incredibly talented and incredibly well coached, and should be one of the favorites or the favorite. So then breaking down, say they do everything they're supposed to do, and they tighten it up. On the AFC side, the Bengals are the only team that have beaten them in the playoffs recently, that I've seen. So that's the only team that I can really believe, until I see otherwise. Not to say it can't happen, and there's teams that could match up and beat them. But the Bengals with a healthy Joe Burrow are the only team I've seen do it. And I think that also has more to do with Lou Anarumo's defense than it does with Joe Burrow, if I'm being quite frank. Because Lou Anarumo actually is really one of the only defensive minds in football, in my opinion, that can actually challenge Andy Reid, from what I've seen. But with what I was saying earlier, the AFC North is a gauntlet. And I think that if we see that Bengals Chiefs matchup, I think it would be like a 1-4 matchup, and where the Bengals would be going to Kansas City. And I think Kansas City wins that and goes to the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl, whatever. But I think I think Kansas City is going to go to the Super Bowl again, and then I think that this would be where an NFC team could beat them. And I think for me, the final two in the NFC are Detroit and Philly. Those are the two teams that I would expect. I think it would be really cool to see Detroit, because they haven't won it yet. I love JC, but we all know Philly fans are the worst. And
not you, JC, though. Of course, you're fine.
Not JC. He's the only person from Philly that counts. Now I'm going to have all the Eagles fans coming for me. But anyways, I digress. So yeah, power ranking them. Chiefs. I'll say Lions, Bengals. We'll say those are the three biggest risks to the Chiefs.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for us, guys. We went a little over, but thanks for sticking with us. We're going to be right back again next week. We're going to start doing division dives here pretty soon. So make sure you're tuning in for your division to kind of see how we think things are going to stack up. And then we're going to have camp reports. We're going to have all kinds of things coming up. So as always, thanks for tuning in. Fit Down Territory is sponsored by Stadium Rant. Big thank you to them. So make sure to check out their website, stadiumrant.com. They do articles, podcasts, all kinds of stuff. Other great shows like this. You guys can get all your sports content there, by the fans, for the fans. So have a great night, and may the Chiefs never win again.